Welcome back to Moko Plays Satisfactory on Update 7 Experimental. In terms of where we're at, we've got our basic factory set up here. So we've got basic iron production doing screws, rods and plates over here. Basic concrete production just behind me. Basic copper production over in this direction with cables and wires coming in. We're still on biofuel over here. And the next stage really is to get into that next stage of complexity in production. We've unlocked the tier that allows us assemblers, and so that means that we can start to look to things like rotors and reinforced iron plates, which will then help us bootstrap our way towards more complex builds. What we want to do is to automate that more complex production and also to take advantage of some alternative recipes to do so. So in terms of off-stream progress, I did find some that we're going to be able to take advantage of here. If we have a look in our codex, what did we get? Reinforced plates. We've got a really strong alternative recipe here, which is the stitched iron plates, which uses plates and wire, both of which we're producing already in pretty high volumes. So that's going to help us out a lot here. It removes some of the complexity in terms of needing to make screws for the standard recipe. Got some other alternatives in terms of copper. We've got some different options and that sort of thing. This is going to help us out, this copper ingot recipe that uses copper and iron, because iron's more prevalent in the world and especially around our starting base. So if we need a lot of copper, we've got some flexibility here. I was kind of hoping to get an alternative recipe for screws, which is going to help us bypass this middle section of the screw build where we go ingots to rods to screws and just go from ingots straight to screws. Haven't found that just yet, so I will still be doing some exploring, probably throughout the duration of this episode, to try and find that. The other things that we've been doing is going down the MAM tree to get some alternative technologies that are again going to help us out in terms of building and in terms of navigation. So this is new, this quartz production here. There's 2 pure quartz nodes right next to our base, which is really handy. So what we're doing here is just mining interconstructors with we've got some quartz crystal over there on the far side and then some silica in the middle. The silica we're also producing more than we need, and we're just running those into an awesome sink because quartz is really profitable when it comes to awesome sink and coupon generation. And that's going to help us to unlock some things that will again help us to build, navigate and customize our factories. While I was out exploring, and this is really normal for Satisfactory, I did also just run into some more stuff around the world. So we've got our first mycelia, got some more power slugs, and that sort of thing. So if we head on over to our MAM, the first thing we're going to do today is to take a look at that stuff, get some unlocks going, and then again, as I'm exploring the world more throughout this episode, we'll be able to feed more into that and unlock more stuff in the MAM. Here's our MAM over here. I've added this personal storage with stuff that will be able to feed into that. And if we take a look, we've got pretty much every tree open to us at this point. Alien organisms we could have if we wanted to go and kill some animals. I can't remember offhand if there's anything valuable in there that we really need or not. But every other tree we've at least got the potential to be working with right now, which is good. So with our quartz generation running pretty strong there, we've got quite a lot of quartz on us. What I actually need for the blade runners, which is the one thing that I want first from the quartz tree, is some silica. So let's actually go and grab that first. Blade runners up basic movement speed, jump height, and they reduce fall damage as well. So they're one of those things where the longer you've been playing the game, the more used you get to just that sort of movement. Coming back to the early game without them feels more restrictive than I expected, in all honesty. So definitely wanting to prioritize those for unlock. Again, as I am doing more exploring the world, as we're building bigger factories and needing to navigate around them more, they are a must-have tool. They're an always-on item once you do get them. Here's our silica. Let's grab a couple of stacks of that and just create a temporary MAM here. And we also need modular frames, which we have many of. The other thing that comes from exploration is when you find drop pods, there's often resources around them, and those are sometimes more complex than what you can build. So we have, for example, picked up some circuit boards as well while we've been out exploring, which we won't be able to craft for a while, but we've got some in our inventory now, which is really handy for doing this sort of unlock. that's those now unlocked. I believe we need a craft bench or an equipment workshop for those, so let's grab one of those as well. And what do we need? Silica we've got, modular frames we've got, rotors we do not have, so let's grab a craft bench. I think it was just a couple of rotors. Let's just craft a few because we're going to need some for looking at any more complex technology like assemblers this episode as well. Alright. Let's equip those. This is relatively new. I think this was an update 6 change, that you've got multiple slots throughout the body now. You used to have to kind of make a compromise between Blade Runners or Jetpack or whatever, and now you can kind of have one of everything equipped at a time, which is really incredibly helpful. And so, you'll see immediately I'm jumping much higher, and I am running much faster as well. Slide jump now covers more distance, and it makes it easier to do things like jump straight onto top of splitters to get some verticality while you're working as well. So, incredibly good upgrade there. Let's have a look back in the MAM, as there is, I'm sure, some more stuff that we want to start the unlocks towards. Caterium we haven't found too much of just yet. Nothing here that we're really desperate to get, but we will, when I find a Caterium node out in the world, I'll just do a similar setup to what we've done with Quartz here, drop a miner on it and start to get some basic production going. Mycelia, we could really use that fabric. That'll let us work towards parachutes, which again will help with mobility. Nutrients we don't really care about, we're not doing combat, so healing's not a huge priority for us. It's only really from fall damage, and you do heal over time as well, so pretty good. Power shards though we are going to want, because we're going to want to both underclock and overclock. Overclocking, more production from less space at the cost of extra power consumption. Underclocking, if we have a machine that doesn't need to run at 100% capacity, we can underclock that, force the machine to produce less than it would try to otherwise, and that'll again save us some power consumption, so both are really valuable. Quartz tree, that's extra inventory, so I'm actually definitely going to get that right now. We've also got things like crystal oscillators, which we'll need in due course, but don't need right this minute.
Has been inflated.
Thanks, Ada. And the sulfur tree, again, we'll get towards like these to clear some barriers in the world, the extra pocket dimension and stuff, but we don't have much sulfur or coal to work with right now, so let's stick a pin in that. Yeah, so really it's just the mycelia and the power slugs trees that we care about right this minute, and both of those are back in that temporary storage I added. So what I'm thinking, given that I do want the flexibility of some extra alternative recipes, is we'll unlock these things now. Pause the stream for a bit while I do some more exploration and hopefully find some extra goody recipes that are going to help with things like screw generation and that sort of thing. Let's get these unlocked though. Mycelia. Oh, I need some biomass, which we are producing around here, but we don't have any kind of storage buffer for. No leaves in there, there's wood in there. Let's drop those off while we're here. And in fact, let's get power back online while we're going here. Wow, we have lots of solid biofuel there. This power setup here has been working alright for now. As we expand into more complex builds, we are going to run over capacity. In fact, I think if everything was running right now, we would be over capacity. I think we're at 250 if I remember right. Yeah, so we do have potential to use more power than we've got right now, which is basically we're going to need to expand this. don't have tons of space to work with in this corner, so I'm in two minds between expanding out into the middle here to add more power, or to go up onto that ridge there. We'll think about that a little bit as we're working. Let's get those back in. And then we can unlock our next stuff. Oh no, wait, we needed biomass. That's why I was confused. Let's just... How much are you actually producing? 60 per minute, and we needed like 100, right? Let's just craft them by hand. Whatever. That's another reason for wanting to do some exploration today as well, is like, really, there's not all that much fuel stored up there. We've got a fair amount of solid biofuel, but we are low on leaves and wood. So again, as I'm running around gathering, I'm just picking up any resources like that I find to keep us going. Alright, mycelia. Or fabric. So what can we do? We can get an extra hand equipment slot, that'll be helpful, but we don't have rotors to spare right now. Parachutes, if we make some fabric, then we can do that. Synthetic fabric we're not going to worry about. I think we're probably about where we need to be in terms of that tree. I did get the power slugs, so let's research towards power shards as well. Oh, again, we need more rotors for that. That's slightly annoying, and we need a power shard for this. So I essentially fed in the first couple of slugs here. That gives us the ability to turn slugs into power shards, which are what are used when overclocking and underclocking. So we can take our blue slugs and turn those into power shards. We can handcraft some rotors. And we can handcraft some fabric while we're here. Looks like maybe I don't actually have enough mycelia to make the fabric for parachute unlocks. So again, I'll keep an eye out for that as I'm out exploring the world. Parachutes are a useful way. They're a consumable item that let you, as the name suggests, kind of fall safely from heights, which is useful when collecting things like drop pods. Quite often you have to climb a long way up the terrain to get to them. In the longer term game, obviously, like a jetpack or that sort of thing is useful for height mobility, but in the meantime, parachutes make a good interim solution. Does this give us... That lets us process purple slugs into purple power shards. I did find a couple of purples, so we're going to want to do that. That needs some steamed copper sheets, which we don't have set up just yet, and also quite a lot of modular frames. So I'm thinking I'll actually hold off on this, and we'll revisit it when we have a real need to underclock or overclock in bulk. The different slugs, we've got blue, which is like a 1-to-1 slug to power shard ratio. Yellow, which I think is a 2-to-1 ratio, and then purple, which is a 5-to-1 ratio, so one purple power slug gets you 5 power shards, as in you can over or underclock a machine 5 times, or 5 separate machines. Let's also unlock the overclocking while we're in here, though. I don't think we're going to need that really desperately urgently, but it'll definitely be useful. In fact, when we get to the assembler build, we're probably going to want to run some underclocked, just to save on that power draw. Oh, we only need 10 fabric to get the parachute, so we can do that right now, so let's do that as well. And it's biomass, that's our limiting factor in creating fabric, so all I'm going to do is handcraft a little bit more of that, actually. Because it also takes fabric to create the parachutes themselves, and they are a consumable, which is unlike most of the other equipable items in Satisfactory. So it is worth building up a bit of a stock here. Not going to worry about any of the rest of this stuff now. I think we're good from the man point of view until we find any more hard drives to scan. Parachutes here or here? Probably here in the equipment workshop. So 10 fabric gets us 5 parachutes. 10 fabric plus some cables. And then we just equip those in the slot on the back. And how that works essentially is when you're falling, if you press space, it'll always open up a parachute which can slow your descent to a safe rate. Alright, we can cross some things off this here to-do list. That's no longer something we care about. This still is, and we still want some alternative recipes, at least for screws. We've got the good reinforced plates recipe, so we're good on that front. So, I'm going to drop off the recording for a bit, go and do some more world exploration, find some more leaves and resources, and hopefully some more hard drives as well. And then we'll come back and look at this more complex iron production in the assemblers. So I'll catch up with you guys shortly. Alright, we're back from doing an explore here. Got a bunch more leaves and wood, so they're going through and processing here. I also found another couple of hard drives, so I've done some more scanning for alternate recipes, and got the screw recipe I was looking for, which is this one for casted screws. So that lets us bypass the standard recipe, which requires us to go iron ore to ingots to rods to screws, and instead just go ore to ingots to screws. And it's slightly more efficient in terms of its yield there. More efficient for space because we need fewer constructors, more efficient for power, fewer machines, and generally better yield as well, so it's a good recipe for this stage in the game. Gonna get running with that and refactor screw production over here, and then we'll get on to building some assemblers for those more complex iron parts. We are going to run out of power in terms of capacity if we do that, so the next thing that I'm going to do is just take our biomass setup here with the biomass burners, and I'm going to move them up to this ridge up here so we've got more space for them. One thing that comes up when you constantly have to come in here and take the biofuel and feed it in is, like, it's nice to be able to just get into each machine in a line, and we're kind of running out of space here to expand without things getting a little bit clumsy. So I'm just going to move the power production up to there to save, well, to give us more space to play with, really. So I'll do that now and come back, and then we'll look at that screw production. Alright, there's our new platform for power, so I've got rid of the biomass burners from behind our setup here. Still going to be converting stuff into solid biofuel right here. But around here on this ridge, we've now got a whole bunch more space, and using that space for a nice array of biomass burners. That's capacity up to 430 megawatts, so we should be good for anything we're going to add in the near future. The only thing I was thinking is it's a bit of a chore running around to get up here. So what I think I will do is break out one of our new bits of technology, which I did think I had unlocked. I'm looking for a jump pad and I'm not seeing it. Is that on a tier of thing we didn't get? It is. Well, let's just wait until we've crafted 50 rotors, I guess, to get that. Okay, cool. Let's add that to our to-do then. Jump pads. In fact, we should select the milestone in here as a reminder. One cable short, that's annoying. Okay, so we've got our new screw recipe, which means we can eliminate this run of constructors here and instead co-opt more or less the half a row of screw constructors we've got here and just have these churning out. I'm sorry, eliminate half the run of iron rod constructors we've got here. These 4 are constructing rods that are then going straight into our screw setup, we can get rid of these and just have these constructing the screws themselves with the alternative recipe. We have been constructing screws and just funneling them into the awesome sink, so we're going to get rid of this setup here, but before we do that, let's have a look. Yeah, we've had quite a lot of coupons generating in here. Now that's mostly this production that we're doing here is mostly coming from our quartz into silica construction over on the far side of the base there. The silica is giving us a lot of points per minute for generating relatively little. These coupons here, they start out costing about 1,000 points before each coupon unlocks, but you can see we're already up to 30 odd thousand to unlock the next coupon, and that's because this scales up exponentially. I'm going to use these to buy some items from the awesome shop, but we do want to box a little bit clever, just because the way this economy works means that like our first few things that we buy are relatively easy to obtain, and it'll get progressively more costly the longer we're sinking items in to generate coupons. Like long term, we're definitely going to generate more coupons than we need, but right now we don't want to just go buying the first things that everything off the first page here if we're not necessarily going to use it, because the coupons are going to get quite costly quite quickly. So we do want to make sure we're getting the most bang for our buck here. Most of these things are about aesthetic, organization, decoration. There's some that do have kind of more functional aspects though, so I'm gonna be sure to prioritize those. Signs are gonna help us keep the factory organized, which we're definitely gonna want. We haven't done anything with walls and ceilings yet, but I've never really messed with conveyor wall mounts, but I am really intrigued by the conveyor ceiling mount. That definitely solves a problem which I and a lot of other players I think have had in the past, so I'm definitely going to want to get that. Lift floor holes I get as well. For one coupon, let's get the wall mount and see if it's useful. Wall power is definitely useful to avoid some of the spaghetti of running power poles all over the place. These foundations we'll probably come back to. I think these are more useful from an aesthetic point of view. There's probably nothing functionally that we can't do without these. The same with the walls, really. We do have basic walls unlocked, I'm fairly sure. Some of these items on the architecture page will be really handy for traversal and for getting around various areas in our factory. Ladders we're definitely going to want. Ladders are really good for traversing multi-story factories, but also really useful for traversing the world as well, to get up high, to get things like crash drop pods and power slugs if they're out of the way. Probably want some of the walkways and stuff, but maybe not right away. The concrete foundation is actually a functional change here, I think, like a functional upgrade. Right now we've been using these fix-it foundations which cost 5 concrete and 2 iron per foundation. I'm pretty sure if we get the concrete foundation, that changes the cost to entirely concrete, given we're generating concrete now without any other need for it, and it'll be a while before we use any concrete in construction or in any other machines. That's definitely worthwhile. Yeah. Surely that's not 2 per tile. That seems too good to be true. Either way, gonna want that as well. Plus I like the look of the concrete foundations. Don't need any of these. Parachutes we can make. And anything in the parts page we can probably make right now. I think the way that parts works is ultimately everything in parts is limited to stuff that you have like the potential to make yet. Obviously, like we say, like coupons get more costly the longer you go into the game, so it doesn't really make sense to blow all of your coupons buying stuff that you can craft. However, we will at various points maybe want to make a tactical decision to get in here, get early access to some parts that'll help us to then bootstrap ourselves. Like, for example, if we were waiting to unlock Mark III belts and that needed a part that we haven't started to mass produce just yet, might make sense to come in here and buy a couple of packs of those just to get the unlock, to get ourselves going, so that we can use the Mark III belts in automating that resource. I think that's the way that it works with steel. I think getting steel from here in a bit is going to be quite a good shout. But anyway, that's all of that stuff's going to take 19 coupons out of the 24. So let's do that, and we'll have those to work with. Let's then get rid of this stuff. I'm going to dismantle all of this run of screws here, and then we'll walk through setting up the alternative screw recipe. Bear with me while I do that. Okay, that's that screw production gone. I've kept the run into our storage here because we're planning on reusing that once we've set up the alternative screw recipe in some of this row of constructors. I've also just thrown a temporary awesome sink over here with some of the resources that I got from the machines that were sitting full of screws and rods and things, because it filled up my inventory while I was dismantling stuff. So we may as well get some coupon points for it. So what we've got here is a run of 8 constructors, creating iron rods, and that's taking 120 ingots per minute that are coming from this run here. Now we did have these split 50-50 with half of the iron rods just going into storage and half of the iron rods being used to make screws. The next set of recipes we're going to look at requires rods and does require screws, so we are going to need some of each. So I feel like half and half is generally a good way to go. My rule of thumb is generally split resources 2 ways like that. If I don't know for definite the balance that's going to be needed for the next stage of what they're going to be used for. So yeah, I think we'll take half of these ingots and continue to make rods with them down at the far end of this row of constructors here. And we'll use the closer row of constructors to create the screws using the cast screw recipe. It takes 12.5 ingots per minute and creates 50 screws, versus the iron rods taking 15 per minute to make 15 rods. So screws you definitely use in high volumes, so it's no real concern that we're going to end up with like a ton of those. But the 12.5 in is a slightly strange figure. So what we've got 120, we're still going to be using 4 constructors worth 4 rods, which is 60 per minute. It's going to leave us 60 per minute for cast screws at 12.5. That's nearly 5 constructors, so I think it's worth putting down 5 and just working on the knowledge that of the 5 constructors for screws and 4 for rods, if everything's running, then one of those is going to be slightly underfed. I think that's better than just doing 4 of each. So what would we get from that? 4.8 constructors times 50 screws gives us 240 screws per minute, which is too many for a Mark II belt to carry, so we do need to factor in the way that we're going to use those screws. Can't all be ran from one line. It'll be a while before we get a belt that can handle 240 or more resources per minute. And we've got 8 constructors here. We're going to upgrade that to 9. So let's add the extra constructor here and do a bit of rejigging of this pattern. Right, you need a recipe. And all of you guys need recipes as well. That's our 5, and this is our 4 that are going to continue doing rods and running down this line this way. These we need to rejig the mergers on anyway because we don't want to run just on one line. We have too many screws to do that. So while we're doing that, we'll get rid of these belts that are partially filled with rods anyway. And you need power. Let's do the trick. Now we're going to have 50, 100, so that can be one Mark II belt, another Mark II belt, and then a third Mark I belt over here. Now these are going to run out, and we're going to want to have some go into storage and some going to our assemblers for the next stage of builds. I'm into minds about whether we're going to build out that way for the assemblers or build up. Normally, historically, I have done way more building up, get to a platform about this size and then build the next floor, especially when you're going up like a layer of complexity in the build to go up over. What's kind of holding me back from thinking that is the idea that this factory in and of itself is probably going to be temporary. We're going to want to dedicate all of this platform to smelters at some point because we've got so many iron nodes over that way. And especially as we increase the capability of our miners, the throughput of our belts and stuff, the smelters that we've got today are going to be a small portion of the smelters that we'll need to process all of that iron, which makes me think we're just going to want to use all of this space for smelters sooner or later. So I don't care too much about permanency of the build here. I think maybe just building out in this direction might be the way to go. Let's indeed do that. Let's set ourselves up a platform that extends out in this direction, get some assemblers down, and then we can worry about how to get the resources in. Bearing in mind we're going to need the rods coming out of here, the screws coming out of our new cast screw production over there, the plates coming out of here, and the wire coming from our copper production over there. Yeah, let me give us a platform to work with and we'll check back in once I've got an idea of where the assemblers are going to sit. Alright, I changed my mind and decided to build up rather than to build out. And that's partly because, especially with having to manage multiple outputs of these screw machines here on separate lines, running multiple lines out in this direction would get pretty spaghetti pretty quickly. Using some conveyor lifters, it'll be much easier, I think, to be able to keep things segmented. We do that. So I built us out a platform which is roughly the same size as the one we were working on the next story up. If you're new to the idea of building vertically in Satisfactory, it's pretty normal for people to want to go about 4 walls or 4 blocks of 4 meters high. That always means that well, almost always means that you've got enough space at the top, even if you're using slightly taller buildings than these are. Could have built slightly lower here if we want to, but going up in 4 block increments always works well for me. I've left these holes here so that we can get a glance down and see where our inputs are coming in. So we're going to get screws from here, and here, and here. Over here we're going to add a splitter there to split off some rods, so we're still sending the excess to storage but using the ones we need to for this next stage of the build. Similarly down here we're going to split off plates, lift those up and again send the excess into storage. And then to get the wire across from our copper build, I've added this little bridge using the new concrete foundations. And all I did there was to lift up the copper line so that it's a tier higher, add in a splitter that kind of junctions it off here, and again we've still got the rest running down that main line into our storage bin. I also turned off a couple and dismantled a couple of the cable constructors that we had, so we're actually generating more wire now, or keeping more of that wire for this next stage of the build, where previously most of the wire we were generating was going straight into being cables. But we don't have any pressing need for tons of cables right now, and we could use more of the wire for this build, so yeah. So we're going to have screws from here and rods from the end, so this definitely wants to be our rotor assemblers. Assemblers have two inputs like this, and they're wider. Well, I was going to say they're wider than one foundation wide. The model itself is pretty much exactly one foundation by the looks of it, but the bounding box on that, as you could see, is slightly bigger, which means that you can't really build them next to each other neatly. You always end up with a bit of an odd gap. So what I tend to do is build them at 1.5 foundation wide. So you see the ladder on this design is exactly on the join between two foundations. The next one I would place with the ladder directly in the center of the foundation like this. So one would go here, and one would go here. If that didn't make sense, don't worry about it. It'll make more sense when we start to drop them in. We are going to need some rotors for that. Oh. Are they 4 rotors per? And I think we're going to need 6 assemblers for this build. So with the assembler having 2 inputs, there's a few pretty standard ways that people manage the belt work into that. You can either run multiple like parallel rows of belts on the same level as each other, but kind of always going to have some belts clipping into each other unless you start to embrace some verticality. So what seems most normal from what I've seen is to run the belts in from the side like we would do with the manifold pattern for the assemblers or constructors, for the constructors or smelters, but to use a 2-tier system vertically for doing that. So to have one running at ground level like this, and then to have another one running the level higher like this. I tend to do it one of 2 ways, either like this, so with one belt at ground level and one splitter higher. So I have a belt running through from the side like this, and then the other one running over the top of it. If you do it this way, then you get this kind of curved input, and this one just runs straight in. The other way to do it is to go to the 3rd height for splitters, and that puts you at the right height for a conveyor lift like this. I've used both kind of depending on needs and preference. I've been using more of the 2nd tier with the curved 2nd belt lately, and I think that's what we're going to run with for this one. What I do need to consider is that we're not able to run just one long belt along this way for the screws, because like we said, belt throughput is problematic when it comes to the volume of screws we're dealing with for this build right now. What do we actually need for the rotors? 100 screws per minute, so yeah, to do each of these machines, we're going to have to co-op 2 of our screw constructors' outputs, which is fine from like an inputs to outputs efficiency point of view. It's just slightly challenging when it comes to thinking about how I'm going to run the belts. So that's what I was talking about in terms of building these like what as if they're 1.5 tiles wide. you can group them slightly closer than this if you're pushed for space. Doing it this way means that you're always going to be able to like stick your splitters down at the same point in the foundation. Like it's a little bit more uniform, but that's purely a matter of personal taste. If we run one, so if we merge these two constructors and run that into one of these inputs, maybe I want to nudge that across to the right a little bit so that this input here is directly in line with this output. Or maybe we merge those a little bit more central. See how it looks for the others. It's these two here. And then the last one's going to go 1-to-1. This machine's going to be slightly starved for screws, but that's okay. It's okay for it to be not running at full capacity, I think. Yeah, let's nudge this across slightly so it's at least aligned. I think I'd slightly rather the belts not be too messy, even if it means for like a not quite uniform gap with the assemblers. Is that in line? Not quite. It wants to be one notch further over. Here. 1, 2 over, I think, should be have this input perfectly in line with this output. So if we merge these two like so. And then stick a Mark II conveyor lift on there. We're going to need our floor hole to be right on the dividing line between these two. Right there. These floor holes are just an aesthetic thing. You can actually soft clip the conveyor lifts right through the floor if you so desire. But I prefer the look of these things. What this does mean, since these are lifted anyway, is we can take them up 1, 2, 3, 4 notches from the ground, I think. Use the corresponding lift there. Needs to be a Mark II. That already is a Mark II. And then that keeps the ground floor, or the ground level, free for our splitters to run with the rods. Which in fact will be coming from that side to this way. Alright, that works for that one, so we want a splitter for the rod. The input coming from away from us. And we'll just run that in like that. 20 rods per minute, so those will be fine to run on the one line. It's just the fact that each of these needs 100 screws per minute that is posing a slight challenge. Again with this one, they can merge to here. I'd want to move that across slightly. Or we could move it so one of the inputs is right where I'm standing and merge these two into the middle. Kind of either or, really. Let's do that. Let's do it like this. Conveyor lift hole. It's gonna go there. Our assembler is gonna go in line with the others, but slightly more this way so that input's aligned with our lift. Mark 2 lift into the hole. Mark 2 lift. The only real downside with these conveyor lift holes is finding the right slot here to connect to them. It's sometimes a little bit painful. Alright, 1, 2, 3, 4 takes us to the right level. Going up there. And again, we're having problems with belts not wanting to join up with each other. Okay, yeah, I'm just going to quit and restart. The game did patch just before I started this recording session with problems, so I think there might be an issue with that the most recent build on experimental. But let me just do a quick restart here. Okay, we're back, and sure enough, that seems to have sorted it. So again, splitter in here, coming from the opposite direction than we're looking for the rods. And then our last screws are going to come... Oh, I forgot to do the belt work on these. Last screw is going to come straight up from here. What I am going to do is stick a merger down. It's not strictly needed because we're doing one machine, one constructor into one assembler here. But I want to keep the options open to maybe co-opt some of these rod machines to be making more screws. It might be that we want to run all 3 of these at full capacity. And so this just gives us a little bit more flexibility, plus it makes the build look a bit more consistent. Again, we're going to want the input to be dead center of where we're standing, so let's move this assembler. That looks like the center of the tile, and then it just wants to be in line with the others. That looks good. I want the lift to be on the join between the tiles here. I was going to say let's do a Mark 2 lift, just again in case we end up upgrading it with adding some more screw production into this line, but we are out of reinforced iron plates for building Mark 2 gear, so we'll have to build those stuff as Mark 1s until it's ready. And then we can upgrade the bits we need to once we've got some more reinforced iron plates. That looks good. Again, this one's a splitter coming from this direction. This is just 20 each, so this is actually fine to just be on a Mark 1 belt. And we need to get the outputs of these. Oh, I did not build them in line, that's annoying. Is it worth redoing? Is it going to bother me that much? Probably. The tricky thing with assemblers, if you see the green line that's running from the middle of the screen over to the left, that's telling me I'm in line with something. And those lines show for assemblers, they show for the middle of the assembler, they show for the outputs, as in like, sorry, the inputs, like they show for both inputs. And I'm not sure what it's not snapping onto there. So let's do it from this side instead. We know we want our two inputs to be here. And the green line in the middle of the screen there now tells us the assembler's in line with the other two, so I think we're good. Alright, we're going to want to merge these rotors that these are making. And some we're going to send to another assembler to make some smart plates. Some we're going to send straight into storage. For right now, let's just get them out and merged, and worry about the detail later. I mean, whatever, we don't need to run the lines directly into a smart plate assembler. Like, running the lines from the thing you're making to the thing you're going to make next is definitely good practice if that's going to be something that's going to stay automated for any length of time. In this case, we only need to make 50 smart plates for the space elevator tier that we're working towards, so we can just run all of these into storage and then grab a stack of rotors by hand to feed them into an assembler for the smart plater, I think. Let's check down temporary storage here for now. Let's grab some iron plates. Oh, hey, I used all of the spares from that bin. As soon as we've got some power up for these guys can be cracking away while we do our reinforced iron plates build. Alright, yeah, we need rods in. The rods are here, so we can just run to a line like this. Go 1, 2, that'll give us our right angle. So we're going to want to split in the middle of this tile here. I think we might have enough space to do it here. Yep, if you hear that little ting as I rotate here, that means the conveyor lift's connected to something, be that an input of a machine or in this case just straight to a belt, so that always tells you you're aligned properly. Okay. Those are coming up. I didn't run that through a floor hole. Darn it. Alright. This was my point. There we go. It's sometimes very finicky to find the right attachment for the floor holes. That should all be hooked up. Yep, good. Alright, that build should now be done. Now we need plates from here for the stitch chain plates. We need the wire from here, which we're going to lift up and run down probably this way. We'll probably just more or less replicate this setup over here. This row is going to be splitters, means assemblers go from here on in. We don't strictly have to build them aligned or anything. We certainly could do them here. Incredibly annoyingly, we need reinforced iron plates, and that's what we're trying to automate here. But let's just manually handcraft some. What do we need? 8 per machine, and we need 3 machines, so just need another maths. 16, 18. Alright, assembler. Splitters on this row, assembler on this row. Everything's coming from left to right here, so we're going to want splitters like this and like this. And then if we get rid of the bottom one, then one row will run like this without running into the other one, and the other row will run a level higher. That's not facing the right way at all. Life is much easier now that I've got the blade runners on for jumping up and down onto these splitters to get a bit of verticality to see while we're building. Yeah, so doing this stitch plate recipe, so we need 37.5 wire each. So we will need to Mark II belt the wire, we won't need to Mark II belt the plates for these 3 machines. Let's merge her out what it's producing. you see what I mean about getting the multiple green lines there? So on the left of the screen, I think that one is indicating we're aligned with the center of the assembler, which is the output, but if we back off 2, we get another green line, which I think is in line with the input on the other side of the machine. And that's the other input, so it does make it sometimes a bit of a challenge at a glance to know whether you are in line or not. Which is my excuse for why I keep putting these in the wrong place. And again, let's just grab a storage bin over here. Power to there, into there, into there, into there. Can you in fact just steal from there? Yes, you can. The recipes. Yes, cool. All you need is inputs. So, plates. I'm going to merge off. Oops. That's fine, meant to do it. Merge off here, split off here. I have used the word splitter when I mean the word merger, and vice versa in this video series quite a lot. I do hope you aren't getting confused when I do that. We could go either way. Let's go this way. This is actually easier from up there, especially when we're going to want to place a floor hole. Floor hole's going to want to be dead center here? Yes, I think so. Centered that way and not centered this way. Like this. I think that's right. Hey. And then let's run that one at ground level. Oops. That's not what I meant to do. Like so. Back up 1, 2. Okay, those are our plates. So we just need our wire coming in from over here, which we will run onto conveyor poles that are 1 level high, like that. 1, 2, 2, like that. That. Down the edge here, like so. 2 back, up a level. And then we can either drop a stackable pole on top here like this, which sometimes is a bit finicky to align. Or we could just like run them down here, lift them up, clip them, and then get rid of the standard pole. Either works. Is that a right angle? Nowhere near. yes, good. Okay. Except that's now not in the right place. Ooh, boy. In line with this. Also in line with that other pole. There. There we go. That's the apparently most difficult part of the game done with. Now we just need to run this in a way that's not going to get in the way of anything else. So let's just add the lift there. Oh, and maybe if we are lucky, this will be the right distance away. That's just going to be a nice right angle curve on its own accord. Possibly. The things have happened. Nope. Okay. Let's move this back a touch. Now that we know the shape of what we're doing, we can go like that. That's just me using the scroll wheel to turn, which is the alternate method. And then unless I've really messed something up here, that'll just connect. There we go. That was worth spending an extra couple of minutes on to create a nice looking junction, right? Yeah, probably. It was. Aesthetics matter. Those should be feeding in pretty soon. They're going to come and start to create our reinforced iron plates, or our stitched plates. Which is good, because we need those to upgrade some of the belts to Mark II, including some of the ones like those that are feeding these wires, for example. So just to speed things up a little bit, because I want those iron plates, I'm just going to drop in some wires by hand and let it get going. And let's just let those filter through for a minute or two. Alright, I've let that run for another couple of minutes, and you can see we've got some of those reinforced plates making their way through here now. This episode is running a little long. There are a couple of quick wins that I want us to get before we call it a night here. So, gonna let these plates filter through and build up. Offline I'll run around and upgrade any of the belts that need to be upgraded to a Mark II. Now we've got essentially infinite tier infinite reinforced iron plates for infinite Mark II belts. But I did want to, while we're here, grab some rotors and let's cross those things off our to-do list in terms of unlocking jump pads and then getting the space elevator going so that we can then be back on our main quest to go towards getting that tier 4 stuff. That's everything we need for jump pads, so let's do that.
Milestone reached. Several buildings aimed at factory traversal can now be accessed in the build menu. Caution is recommended during use of these products.
We've got the jump pad, we've got the jelly landing pad. These don't need to be used with each other. You can use the jump pad without using the landing pad. It's been a while since I've tried this, but you click once to drop it, then scroll the mouse to set the trajectory. And that's just going to be like that for us here. Get some power on it. Where is that power? You have spare power. Oh no, I don't have any wire. Right, let's get some stuff that we do need quite quickly then. Where? We need a ton of this for the space elevator as well, if I remember right. Got some wire, grab some cable while I'm here. Got rods, got plates, got screws, got some of everything. Here you go. So hopefully getting up to our power will be nice and easy and also not hurt me. Hey, there we go. Nice, that's kind of fun. Okay, so from to do. Done. 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 We can't get to tier 4, but we can unlock that space elevator, which is the next thing standing in our way before we get more unlockable milestones for the hub. But all we really need is a space to put the space elevator. And I'm thinking we'll want to build it right over here. One of those things, we probably want it near to our base, but it doesn't need to be so near. That's right in the center of everything, because we are ultimately not going to be going in and out of there very often. Let's go 2 meter and zip down like that. Space elevator is a fair old size, so I just want a decently large platform. This. That should do us. So, special space elevator. I thought that platform was well going to be large enough, but it is not. Let's try that again. I now cannot afford it because I used all of those materials to make all of those many platforms. Need some more iron plates and some more concrete. We can afford it, but we're going to use all of our rods. So let's grab another couple of stacks of those as well. Here we go. this time. Hey. Let's drop it that way just in case we do want to feed anything into these inputs from this direction. Why not? We should really watch this thing being built. It is a pretty impressive boy. Alright, that's there ready for us to load in our 50 smart plates, which we are not yet making, but we have the component parts. It takes one reinforced iron plate and one rotor to make one smart plate. We need 50 smart plates, and we have just automated reinforced iron plates and rotors. So what I'm going to do is end the stream here. We'll let our stock of rotors and reinforced iron plates build themselves up a little bit. At the start of next episode, we'll pop down an assembler to feed in some of those from our stock, maybe a couple of assemblers to do those just to get it faster. Generate those smart plates, come over here and pop them in, and then that'll let us get on to crack on with tier 3 and 4 of the hub unlocks, make our way towards sustainable power and much more flexibility in building out our factories. Thanks for watching, as always, and I will catch you on the next episode of Satisfactory. Cheers!